Thomas Love here of Bellopock Realty. I am coming at you today from our offices here on Adams Street in Jacksonville, Florida, downtown. I wanted to talk with you a few moments about property management, some of the mistakes that I typically see in this industry. This is particularly true of some do-it-yourself landlords who maybe are just starting. Maybe you are a property manager by mistake. Maybe you end up with a home that you are unable or unwilling to sell right now, but cannot live in for whatever reason. And so you decide to temporarily rent it until you figure out what you're going to do. So this is actually very common, and a lot of these individuals, they choose to self-manage. In the course of doing so, sometimes mistakes are made, and sometimes there are things that can be done better. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what I see as the top tips for property managers who are going about the process on their own. I'm going to talk about the top 6 tips that stand out in my mind today. One of the number one tips that I think deserves mention is the Fair Housing Act. You must know about the Fair Housing Act and how to stay in compliance with it. This is extremely important. Basically, the U.S. Fair Housing Law prohibits discrimination among what are considered to be protective classes. Those classes include race, color, national origin, sex, familial status, and disability. So examples of discrimination might include, for instance, refusing to rent your property to somebody because they fall into one of those classes. This is a big one, setting different terms for different classes. If the rental price for your property is this price for this group of people and another price for another group of people, that's an example of a Fair Housing Act violation. If you falsely claim that the property is no longer available for lease, when it in fact is, that could be considered an example of a Fair Housing Act violation as well. And trust me guys, this is only scratching the surface of the Fair Housing Act, but these are some of the things that stand out in my mind, most obvious ways that you can violate that law. Very, very important to stay on the right side of that law. Okay, moving right along, of the top 6 tips that I have for property managers, one, of course, being staying in compliance with the Fair Housing Act. The other one is going to be using a good lease. It's very, very important that you use a good lease when you decide to rent a property, because everything and so much comes back to what the lease actually states. This will cover your rights as a landlord and your tenant's rights. Now, some of these rights are already sort of pre-written in the Florida Landlord-Tenant Act. Everything else has to be detailed. It has to be articulated. It's best if your lease is as clear as possible, especially concerning some of the common issues that come up. What type of pet policy do you have? Do you have a lockout policy if a tenant locks themselves out of the property? Is there a certain amount of notice that a tenant has to give if they decide that they do not want to renew their lease? What types of repairs is a tenant responsible for versus what a landlord is responsible for? What utilities, if any, is the tenant responsible for? When does the rent have to be paid? What are the consequences if the rent is not paid on time? Is there a grace period? These are just some of the things that bubble to the top of my mind when I think about what a lease needs to say and how incredibly important a good lease is. A lot of problems that I will see stem from a lease being sort of vague on a certain area. Okay, in my list of the top 6 tips for property managers, I am on number 3. And that is going to be consistent in your enforcement of the rules. So any rules that you have, it's important to be consistent with them, to enforce them consistently in accordance with your lease. So for instance, if you have a pet policy that bans or prohibits any pets from being in the premises at any time, don't make an exception, because I guarantee you that is just going to muddy the waters and make it much more difficult for you if you decide to make a claim against the tenant for some type of lease violation. If there's a record of you being a little bit inconsistent with enforcing the rules, very big mistake. Okay, moving on to topic number 4 on my list of the top 6 tips, and that is going to be prepare your property for rental. Prepare it for a lease before your tenant moves in. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a toilet that's not flushing very well or a faucet that is not working properly, I can almost guarantee you that that problem is going to become much, much worse once a tenant moves in. Make sure your property is in good condition. Make sure all the mechanicals are in good working condition. If there are any issues, take care of them before your tenant takes possession of the property. Another tip I would suggest, lawn maintenance. Nobody is going to take as good of a care of your yard, of your lawn, as you will. I don't care how good the tenant is. It's just not going to be as good as you will take care of it. So what we recommend doing is we recommend including lawn maintenance in your lease as a service that is provided by you, the landlord. And what you do is you work the cost of that service into the rental amount. In our experience, everybody's happier. The tenant does not have to worry about lawn service, and your yard stays in tip-top shape. You know, we're at topic number 5 now, and the top 6 tips for successful property management. And that is going to be the importance of making periodic inspections of the property. I cannot stress this enough how very important this is. Some landlords, they may drive by occasionally to check out the yard to make sure that there's no flagrant violations of lease terms. But you can't really tell if the property is being well cared for if there are no periodic inspections over the course of time that the tenant is in possession. So we strongly and highly recommend that there be periodic inspections of the property built into the lease, giving the landlord the right to conduct these periodic inspections. How often should the inspections occur? Well, in our experience, not terribly often. Typically what we will recommend is about 3 inspections over the course of a year. We found that this number of inspections enables the landlord to make a determination as to if there is a problem early enough to get in front of that problem. But at the same time, it's not so many inspections that the tenant starts to feel that they are suffering from a loss of privacy. Very important tip, people. Always remember the periodic inspections. Okay, the last tip for the day on the top 6 tips that we have for property managers is to hire a professional property management company. We here at Bellepoque Realty offer a full property management service. We will assess your property, recommend a rental price based on local market conditions. We will market your property, including photos, the description, and we will conduct all showing. We will qualify all applicants and prospective tenants with a very thorough process that we use, which covers things like the criminal record check, credit report and history check, the evictions record report, if applicable, the landlord reference check, the employment and or income verification. We realize that the success of a lease is largely based on putting the right tenant in there. We prepare and execute all of the associated paperwork that's needed. We conduct a thorough move-in inspection with tons of photos documenting the current condition of the property before or as the tenant takes possession. And we collect all the move-in funds and disperse the proceeds to you as the landlord. We provide tenants with a web portal with 24/7 access in which they can submit repair requests. They could pay their rent through this portal as well, easily and securely. For landlords, we provide much of the same in terms of a web portal that you can access 24/7. It's secure. You can access detailed financial records. You can check on the status of any outstanding repairs that are ongoing. You can check on the status of rent payments. It's a very, very useful tool, and it's available 24/7 from your cell phone at any time at your convenience. We collect all of the rental payment. We ensure that the rents are paid on time. We conduct the periodic inspections that I mentioned earlier so that we're able to identify problems quickly and early and deal with them proactively. We've established a network of trusted vendors, which often results in taking care of any issues that do arise, any repairs that need to be addressed efficiently and cost effectively for you. Hiring a property manager means that you don't have to deal with repair calls at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. We will make sure that you're protected as a landlord in the drafting of the lease, in the interaction that we have with the tenant, and from the move-in through the move-out process. Our procedures are designed in such a way to make the process as easy and efficient as possible while protecting you and your interests every step of the way. Well, that's all I have today, everybody. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you find it useful, please consider subscribing. You can actually check the bell for notifications when we upload any future videos. If you or somebody you know of is looking for a property management service, we would love it if you would consider us. Check out our website, which is also linked below, for more information on our services. And if you have any questions about the service that we do offer, feel free to reach out to us. Either myself or my property manager, Nicole Kaiser, will be happy to answer any of your questions and get you all the information that you need in order to make a well-informed decision. Thanks so much, guys. Take care, and we'll see you soon.